Have you ever been told that you're too independent or excessively quiet? You're not unusual or lacking something. Actually, if you find solace in solitude as you age, it might actually indicate some of the most impressive strengths a person can possess. While many believe that individuals who prefer being alone are merely shy or isolated, the reality is much deeper. There's a specific set of personality traits that typically emerge in seniors who appreciate solitude. And once you comprehend what they are, you might view your quiet nature in a completely different light. In this presentation, we're going to explore 7 distinctive personality traits commonly observed in seniors who prefer being alone. These aren't negative attributes. They're indications of emotional depth, wisdom, and inner strength. Characteristics that many individuals never fully develop because they're constantly distracted by external noise and social obligations. As you continue listening, you might find yourself agreeing, thinking, that's precisely how I've always been. And instead of questioning why you don't always blend into busy social circles, you'll begin to value the quiet power of your authentic self. So whether you've always favored your own company or you've gradually embraced solitude over time, keep listening. By the conclusion of this presentation, you'll not only understand these traits more thoroughly, but you may leave feeling more self-assured, more validated, and more connected to the person you've always been beneath the surface. Trait 1. Deep thinkers. Individuals who enjoy spending time alone often possess a mind that rarely truly rests. They're profound thinkers, people who utilize solitude not to avoid life, but to comprehend it fully. While others might rush through days filled with commotion and stimulation, these seniors take moments to contemplate. They analyze conversations after they have concluded. They revisit cherished memories not to linger, but to extract lessons. They contemplate what things signify, not just what they seem to be superficially. Consider Thomas and Edward, both 74. Thomas is constantly encircled by people, clubs, gatherings, phone conversations. His schedule is packed, but his thoughts frequently only scratch the surface. Edward, conversely, spends peaceful mornings with tea and a journal. He documents what he's discovered, what holds importance to him, and what patterns he observes in people and society. He doesn't speak as frequently as Thomas, but when he does, his words carry greater significance because they've been thoughtfully formed in the tranquility of reflection. Being a deep thinker doesn't imply being detached. It means having a vibrant inner world. It means your mind is a space you enjoy exploring. These are the individuals who connect the various elements, who ask why when others accept what, and who comprehend things most people overlook. They're not seeking superficial chatter. They're pursuing meaning in discussions, in literature, in recollections, and in the passage of time. And because of this, they often age with remarkable clarity. They don't fear quietness, they embrace it. They don't require external validation of their thinking because they trust their own insight. That kind of mental self-reliance is uncommon, and it's one of the clearest indicators that someone who prefers solitude may, indeed, possess one of the most perceptive minds in any room. Trait 2, highly observant people who prefer solitude often perceive more than they express. While others might be occupied with talking, organizing, or hurrying, quiet seniors tend to notice the subtleties. How someone pauses before responding, how a bird settles near the window, or how the sky transforms in early morning. They exist with a level of awareness that isn't always evident, but it's consistently present. Consider Michael and William, both 70. Michael spends most days surrounded by conversation, always at the center of activities, but rarely remembers specific details, what someone wore, how they felt, what remained unsaid. William, meanwhile, spends time alone tending his garden, reading, or simply sitting on his veranda. He doesn't converse often, but when he does, he quickly points out how a neighbor's demeanor has changed or how the leaves began changing color earlier this year. His solitude isn't emptiness, it's attentiveness. Highly observant individuals don't require constant stimulation. They discover depth in ordinary things, a sidewalk fracture, a forgotten photograph, or someone's tone of voice reveals stories others might miss. And that observation stems from the space silence provides. Without external noise, their senses remain acute. This quality makes them valuable in quiet, consistent ways. They're the ones who recall your preferred tea, who detect early warning signs before anyone else, or who mention something you said months ago because it was significant to them. They don't just see what's directly visible, they see what lies beneath. In a world that's perpetually moving, constantly clamoring, this kind of sensitivity is uncommon, and it's frequently misunderstood. People assume silence indicates someone isn't paying attention, but often it's quite the opposite. They're paying deeper attention than anyone else present. So if you find yourself drawn to details others disregard, if you feel more connected to the world when it's peaceful, if you notice subtle changes that most people overlook, then what you possess isn't merely a personality quirk. It's a strength, one that's been quietly growing stronger with every moment of tranquility you've chosen. Trait 3, emotionally independent. When someone reaches a stage in life where they feel genuinely comfortable being alone, it often indicates something deeper than mere preference. It suggests emotional independence. Seniors who enjoy solitude aren't avoiding connection. They're simply not dependent on it to feel complete. They've discovered that their inner peace doesn't depend on who calls, who visits, or who compliments them. Instead, it's constructed from within. Think about Susan and Claire, both 77. Susan checks her messages constantly, anticipating news from family, feeling disappointed when a day passes without contact. Her emotions fluctuate depending on others' attention. Claire, by comparison, begins her day with a stroll, prepares a simple breakfast, and enjoys reading in the afternoon. She cherishes her family deeply, but doesn't require constant interaction to feel appreciated. Her happiness isn't connected to other people's actions. It's consistent, like a reservoir that fills from within. This kind of emotional fortitude doesn't develop suddenly. It's formed through periods of disappointment, grief, and personal development. It often emerges in individuals who confront life's challenges, widowhood, health issues, betrayal, and realize that even when others weren't available, they could still remain strong independently. That kind of resilience isn't loud or showy, but it's remarkably powerful. Emotionally independent seniors remain composed in the face of separation. They comprehend that love isn't measured by visit frequency, but by the quality of interaction when it occurs. They don't overreact, they don't seek attention desperately, and they don't interpret every silence personally. Instead, they utilize that time for self-improvement. They rest, they create, they enjoy small rituals, they replenish their own spirit. And interestingly, because they don't cling to others, people often feel more attracted to them. Their serenity becomes infectious. Their presence feels secure. So if you discover that you no longer need external approval to feel satisfied, that you can navigate emotional difficulties without crumbling, you're not excessively withdrawn. You've simply evolved into something many people spend a lifetime pursuing: emotional freedom. Trait 4, selective with relationships. One of the most defining characteristics of seniors who enjoy being alone is that they're extremely selective about who they welcome into their inner circle. They don't pursue acquaintances or fill their schedules with casual meetings. Instead, they choose quality over quantity. They'd prefer 2 meaningful conversations weekly than 20 superficial ones. Let's examine Ruth and Carolyn, both in their early 80s. Ruth is constantly surrounded by people, always agreeing to group outings and social commitments. She enjoys the activity but often ends up feeling exhausted and overlooked. Carolyn, however, spends most time by herself, occasionally meeting with just 2 longtime trusted friends. They discuss substantial topics: life, purpose, even fears. And she leaves those conversations feeling more fulfilled, not depleted. Being selective isn't about being unfriendly. It's about recognizing your energy is precious, and you don't want to waste it on relationships that feel imbalanced or shallow. These individuals have often lived long enough to understand how it feels to be surrounded by people, yet still feel isolated. That's why they choose carefully now. They've learned that tranquility surpasses forced connection. This trait also reflects emotional maturity. They're not pursuing popularity or trying to be admired by everyone. They're not afraid of declining invitations. They've come to treasure their time, their space, and their energy, and they spend it judiciously. The people they do welcome tend to be those who truly see them, respect them, and can share meaningful moments with them. It's typical for such people to have one or two lifelong friends, a sibling they still contact regularly, or even a neighbor they've quietly built a relationship with through years of small acts of kindness. But they won't pretend just to maintain company, and they won't engage in conflict, gossip, or insincerity. If you found yourself stepping back from large gatherings, feeling more drawn to quiet connection than busy assemblies, that doesn't mean you're becoming isolated. It means you're becoming intentional. And intentionality in relationships is one of the strongest signs of self-respect possible. Trait 5. Creatively inclined. There's something inherently beautiful about how solitude and creativity often complement each other. Seniors who enjoy being alone are frequently those who compose poetry in morning hours, sketch in private notebooks, or hum melodies they never formally record. Their creativity doesn't require an audience. It flourishes in silence. Take Richard and Peter, both 79. Richard fills his days with errands, sports discussions, and television, always needing background noise. Peter, however, spends extended periods at his workbench, crafting small wooden figurines. He rarely displays them to anyone. It's not about acclaim, it's about process. That quiet focus, that creative act provides him purpose. It connects him to something greater than himself. Being creatively inclined doesn't mean you must be a painter or novelist. It means you possess a mind that plays, rearranges ideas, finds beauty in patterns, and transforms solitude into a canvas. It might manifest in how you redecorate your home, prepare meals, or arrange your garden. The creative spark doesn't need applause. It just needs space. And seniors who seek solitude often do so because that's where creativity resides. In the absence of chatter, they hear melodies. In morning quietness, they weave together words. In sunlight streaming across the floor, they feel inspiration. Their creativity is personal, intimate, and often sacred. This personality trait is deeply nourishing. It helps prevent cognitive decline, offers emotional release, and adds significance to days that might otherwise feel too quiet. When the world decelerates, creative people accelerate internally. They compose letters, construct model trains, knit blankets for neighbors, or develop stories in their minds they may never share aloud. And while others might view them as loners, what they don't perceive is the rich, textured world unfolding behind their eyes. It's not isolation, it's imagination. It's the ability to transform something ordinary into something beautiful, not for external approval, but because the act itself feels meaningful. If you've experienced this, if you find joy in creating, building, writing, or simply dreaming, especially in solitude, then know this isn't insignificant. It's evidence of profound vitality, a personality attuned to the harmony beneath the noise, and it's one of the most quietly powerful traits anyone can possess. Trait 6. Strong self-discipline. Another trait commonly appearing in seniors who prefer solitude is strong self-discipline. These are individuals who don't need external reminders about when to wake up, when to take medications, or how to maintain their routines. They're guided by something internal, a quiet rhythm they've established over time. Let's consider Robert and James, both 82. Robert thrives in group environments. He joins every senior activity, relies on group reminders for self-care, and feels directionless without external structure. James, conversely, begins mornings at the same time daily. He prepares his bed, performs gentle stretching, and prepares a simple, nutritious breakfast. Nobody observes him. Nobody evaluates him. He does it because it brings inner peace, because it aligns with his authentic self. That kind of internal consistency isn't accidental. It develops from a lifetime of learning to keep promises to yourself, even when nobody else is present. It's what enables these seniors to remain composed and centered, even when circumstances become unpredictable. When confronted with challenges, a new health condition, family complications, routine disruptions, they don't collapse, they adapt. They depend on their habits, values, and quiet structure. Often, this discipline remains invisible to others. It's not dramatic or conspicuous. It's evident in how they remember to nurture their plants, how they document their shopping list, how they monitor their health without prompting. They don't expect others to shoulder their responsibilities. They've learned to manage them independently with steadiness and dignity. This self-discipline also produces a deeper form of liberty. When you trust yourself to follow through, you needn't rely on others for motivation. You become the architect of your existence, even if it's a modest, uncomplicated life. That sense of ownership builds confidence, which influences everything else: how you move, communicate, and approach each new day. So if you've found that you can maintain routines without reminders, that you hold yourself to certain standards even privately, then recognize this quality. It's not inflexibility, it's self-respect. And it's one of the clearest indicators of a strong, quiet character. Trait 7. Spiritually grounded. There's a particular serenity that envelops people who no longer need worldly distractions for companionship. Seniors who enjoy solitude often carry this quiet peace, not because they've abandoned connection, but because they've developed profound connection within. They are spiritually grounded. Consider Margaret and Alice, both 84. Margaret keeps television running continuously, not because she's watching, but because she dislikes silence. She feels uncomfortable without noise, uncertain what to do with stillness. Alice, however, embraces that quietness. She sits by her window with hands resting gently in her lap. She doesn't necessarily pray traditionally, but she contemplates. She poses questions to herself. She considers the past, future, and what might exist beyond both. Being spiritually grounded doesn't require following specific religious practices. It means you've discovered ways to connect with something deeper, whether through nature, faith, memories, or meaning itself. You've begun to understand that life isn't merely about activities, but about how you carry your experiences. This trait often develops in people who have experienced both happiness and suffering. They've loved and lost, succeeded and failed, and somewhere along their journey, they stopped needing all the answers. They became comfortable with mystery, with patience, with accepting that not everything requires resolution or explanation. This quiet spirituality becomes a source of strength. When others become anxious, they remain calm. When others complain, they listen attentively. When life becomes difficult, they turn inward, not to escape, but to find stability. They've cultivated a relationship with silence, and within that silence, they've discovered peace. People like this aren't easily disturbed. They don't chase distractions or demand certainty. They accept what is, and consequently often become anchors for others, calm during crises, steady during turbulence, and gentle when the world feels harsh. So if you discover that solitude brings comfort rather than fear, if you've learned to sense something sacred in life's quiet moments, then you possess one of the most powerful traits anyone can develop with age: spiritual depth, a kind of groundedness that no noise, loss, or change can diminish. Final thoughts. Now that you've heard these 7 distinctive traits, pause briefly and ask yourself, how many resonate with you? Do you find peace in silence? Do you prefer fewer, deeper relationships? Do you feel more connected in solitude than in crowds? If so, you're not simply someone who enjoys being alone. You're someone who has evolved into wisdom, someone who has crafted a life with purpose, reflection, and depth. Society often portrays solitude as something concerning or requiring correction, but as you've discovered today, for many seniors, being alone isn't evidence of isolation. It's evidence of personal growth. It's the outcome of years living, learning, and releasing unimportant matters. It's not about avoiding society. It's about selecting your own rhythm, your own company, and your own peace. And these traits, deep thinking, emotional independence, keen observation, selective relationships, creative expression, disciplined habits, and spiritual grounding, they don't suddenly appear. They're earned. They're the quiet rewards of intentional living. So if you've ever wondered whether your preference for solitude warrants concern, let this reassure you. You're not withdrawing from life. You're connecting differently. You're not less sociable. You're more selective. And consequently, the people who truly know you genuinely know you, recognizing something exceptional. Let this serve as a reminder that your quiet nature isn't weakness, it's strength. And in a world that rarely ceases talking, your silence may actually speak most eloquently.